Okay, so today we're going deep on AGI, and I'm not talking about some chatbot that can barely book a dentist appointment, right? We're talking about artificial general intelligence, like the kind of AI that could completely rewrite the future. And our guide for this whole thing is Leopold Aschenbrenner and his latest piece, Situational Awareness, the decade ahead.
Yeah, Aschenbrenner's really a crucial voice in all this. He's not just, some random commentator. This is a guy who is at OpenAI witnessing firsthand the crazy progress in AI.
Exactly. This isn't like your average tech prediction.
Yeah.
It's a real look inside a field that's honestly moving faster than anyone expected. Even Aschenbrenner himself says, even the experts have consistently gotten the timeline wrong. So to really get where we're going, he says we have to understand this idea of counting the OMs. Basically, it's tracking this exponential growth in what AI can do.
Right. It's about how all these increases in computing power and the advancements in the algorithms, they kind of combine to create these huge leaps forward. Think of it this way. Going from GPT-2 to GPT-4, which only took 4 years, that's like a toddler suddenly having the brain of a high schooler.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. GPT-4 can write complex code, it can solve problems that would make most people sweat, even design a simple website just from, a text prompt. It's wild.
And that leads to a really important point. All this stuff is about the data these AI models are trained on. They're learning by basically gobbling up info from the internet, books, code, you name it. But, and there's always a but, right? There's a catch that Aschenbrenner calls the data wall.
The data wall. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
Well, imagine it like this. You've got a starving guy at an all-you-can-eat buffet. At some point, he's going to run out of room, right? Similarly, there might be a limit on how much helpful data is actually out there. At a certain point, feeding the AI more data might not lead to big improvements. It's a bottleneck that's got some experts concerned.
So wait, are we saying AI is going to hit a wall? Like this amazing growth we've seen, is that just going to stop?
Not necessarily. Aschenbrenner talks about some potential ways around this data wall. One of them is something called synthetic data, which is basically like artificially created information. It's designed specifically to train AI.
So instead of a buffet, we're talking about like a custom meal plan for our AI friend.
Precisely. And then there's another option he mentions, reinforcement learning. It's less about just absorbing info and more about AI actually experimenting, learning by doing, like how we do.
So it seems like we're at this crazy turning point. Do we hit the wall and see everything slow down? Or do we find a way to break through and enter a whole new level of AI? And this is where it gets really interesting because Aschenbrenner predicts we'll see another GPT-style leap by 2027. Another GPT-style leap by 2027. That alone is crazy enough, but Aschenbrenner doesn't stop there. He's suggesting this could just be the start, maybe even leading to something he calls an intelligence explosion.
And what's so interesting here is how Aschenbrenner describes AI basically automating AI research. Instead of a few hundred really smart people at Google or OpenAI, imagine millions of digital researchers working nonstop, collaborating super fast, 24/7. No coffee breaks needed.
Like swapping a team of brilliant but limited humans with a limitless digital army of Einsteins.
Exactly. And to really hit that point home, Aschenbrenner compares this potential explosion in AI's abilities to the jump from the atomic bomb to the hydrogen bomb. It's like 1,000 times more powerful in just a few years.
I bet some people listening are thinking, hold on, can AI really get that good at research? Isn't that something only humans can do?
It's a good question. But think about it this way. AI has some big advantages over us. Perfect memory, for one. AI can process tons of information crazy fast, and they never get tired or distracted. No vacations for AI.
It's like having the best research assistant ever. One that remembers every study, every single data point, every experiment ever done.
Right. And because AI can be objective and focused in a way humans just aren't, it might find those breakthroughs, those connections that we miss.
So following Aschenbrenner's logic, this intelligence explosion isn't some far-off sci-fi idea. We could be talking about AI research going into overdrive within a year or two of getting to AGI. That's really soon. It makes you wonder, are we ready for something this big?
That's the big question. And Aschenbrenner tackles it head on. He spends a lot of time in his work talking about the huge challenges we're facing in this race to AGI.
Like what? You got to give us more than that.
He focuses on 3 main hurdles, each one scarier than the last. First, the sheer amount of resources needed for AGI. Then the massive security issues with increasingly powerful AI. And maybe most importantly, making sure that any superintelligence we create actually sticks to human values and goals.
Okay, let's break those down. First up, resources. How big are we talking here?
Aschenbrenner uses the term trillion-dollar cluster to describe the computing power we'd need to train these future AIs. And he's not kidding. Imagine the cost of the International Space Station, plus the energy use of a small country. That's the scale we're dealing with.
Wow. Even Silicon Valley's biggest spending sprees look like small potatoes compared to that. What does that even look like in reality?
It means completely rethinking our infrastructure. And I don't just mean bigger computers. We're talking about energy production, global supply chains, manufacturing, everything.
So let's say we somehow figure out how to pay for and build this trillion-dollar cluster. What about security?
This is where it gets a little more, shall we say, intense. Aschenbrenner frames it as a race against time. Can we create really strong security measures before someone with bad intentions gets their hands on this tech?
And we're not talking about someone stealing credit card numbers here. We're talking about the possibility of someone messing with entire governments, economies, maybe even global power.
Absolutely. Aschenbrenner specifically calls out cyber espionage and how some countries are really going after AI dominance. To him, falling behind in this race isn't just about tech anymore. It's about risking global security and stability.
That's a scary thought. So we've talked about resources, security, but there's still that third challenge, and it feels like the biggest one. Making sure superintelligence is on our side, aligned with human values and goals. Aschenbrenner calls it superalignment. What does that even mean, and why is it so important?
Imagine something way smarter than any human, able to make decisions and take actions that could change humanity forever. Superalignment is about making sure that incredible intelligence is still working with us, understands and respects our values, even as it becomes more powerful than we can imagine.
That's a tough ask, especially when we're talking about something that could outthink us at every turn. How do we even approach that? Are we just crossing our fingers and hoping for the best?
Aschenbrenner argues that the methods we have now, like reinforcement learning from human feedback, those might be okay for training AI to avoid doing bad things, but they're probably not enough for something as complex as superintelligence. It's like trying to teach a toddler how to fly a spaceship. They're just not there yet.
So are we going to end up creating a superintelligence that eventually turns against us? Is that the inevitable end to all of this AGI stuff, the classic sci-fi nightmare? So are we going to end up creating a superintelligence that eventually turns against us? Is that the inevitable end to all of this AGI stuff, the classic sci-fi nightmare?
Aschenbrenner doesn't seem to think so, but he's definitely not, ignoring the risks. He's actually really upfront about needing a massive coordinated effort to come up with entirely new ways of thinking about AI safety. He even compares it to the Manhattan Project. That's how seriously he's taking this.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty intense comparison. So he's basically saying figuring out AI safety is right up there with preventing nuclear war.
Yeah, you could put it that way. I think it shows just how important all of this is. This isn't like making sure a new phone doesn't have glitches. We're talking about anticipating and dealing with risks we can barely even wrap our heads around right now. Risks that could completely change the world in ways we can't even imagine.
It's a lot to think about, and it definitely feels huge, even if we don't have all the details figured out yet. So where does Aschenbrenner think this all goes? Does he actually say how he thinks this whole AGI thing will play out?
He does, and it's a bit of a bombshell. He predicts that by 2027, 2028, the U.S. government will be super involved in developing AGI.
Really? The government? That seems different from how Silicon Valley usually does things. Why does he think that's going to happen?
Well, he says the potential consequences of AGI, the good and the bad, are just too big for any one company, even a bunch of companies, to handle. The security risks, the safety issues, the sheer amount of resources we're talking about, the fact that this could disrupt the entire world, it all points to needing some kind of government oversight, some way for them to coordinate everything.
Yeah, that makes sense, but I can also see why some people might be nervous about the government being in charge of something as complicated and fast-moving as AI. It's not like they're known for being super quick and adaptable.
I get it. But we're talking about uncharted territory here.
Yeah.
AGI brings challenges and opportunities we've never seen before. Whether we like it or not, the government is going to be involved in shaping this future. The question is, will we be smart about it and plan ahead? Or will we just have to react to whatever happens?
That's a powerful takeaway, for sure. So if Aschenbrenner could only tell us one thing, what would it be?
I think it's this. AGI is coming. Faster than we think. Whether his predictions are exactly right isn't really the point. What matters is that we need to be talking about what AGI means, like right now. The ethics of it all, how it will change society, what happens with global power. We can't wait until it's too late.
He leaves us with a final thought that's both exciting and a little bit terrifying. What if he's right? What if we're on the edge of something completely new? It's a question worth thinking about, and it's one we'll definitely be coming back to on the deep dive.